My life started the moment that I tried to end it. I've been wrestling with God about sharing this piece of my story and testimony on an online platform. But ultimately, what God has been telling me through those wrestling moments is that there's someone out there who needs to hear this part of my story. So with that, here's a bit of my testimony. Growing up, I lived in a very abusive and neglectful household. And when I was 15, on this night specifically, I had just got into a huge argument with my father and stepmother. And was told things like I was a failure, I was never going to amount to anything, I was unlovable and unloved. And I went to bed that night feeling completely defeated and alone. And I specifically remember waiting until everyone else in the house was asleep to just let myself cry. And that pain of loneliness and feeling worthless and unlovable washed over me. And I ended up blacking out. And when I came to, I was in the bathroom and I was bleeding. I remember the feeling of not wanting to be alive anymore. But immediately after that, God popped into my head. I knew who God was, but I didn't really have a relationship with him in this moment. I remember feeling regret and a fight and a will to live. And so in that moment I prayed. And I asked God if he could get me through that moment, that I would give my life to him and I would follow him. I ended up not being able to get a control of the situation, and so I went into my father and stepmother's room to wake them up to try to help. I was met with anger. I was met with more trauma. They continued to tell me things like I should be in a mental hospital. How dare I do this without thinking about my little sister who would see what had happened. I was just yelled at for probably about another hour and a half. And I went to bed that night feeling the same way I did earlier. Feeling more alone, more unloved, and defeated. But as I laid there, I did accept Christ into my heart. And while my circumstances didn't change in that moment, I still went to bed and woke up in the same abusive and neglectful home that I went to sleep in. Something did change in me that day. I ended up getting really involved in church and found ways to get to and from church services and youth group and Bible studies. God ended up bringing me a family who accepted me as one of their own and loved me as one of their own, and just continued to pour into me. More on that story at another time. My circumstances didn't change. My life was still really hard. But God. Because God eventually did get me out. God eventually did provide in that way. I just needed to hold on a little longer. If you're the one person that the Lord brought to this page to see this, I want to put a little bit of encouragement on your heart today. The circumstances that you're going through is really hard. There's times that you don't know how you're going to make it through. You're clinging to God, but you're struggling to know what's going to happen next. You're desperate to hear God and to see him move in your life and in this situation, and you're struggling with holding on. I know. I've been there. But God's got you. God's going to move. God's going to come through. You just got to hold on a little longer. Cling to his words. Cling to the people that he's put into your life, because he's put them in your life for a reason. Let them speak the life and truth into your heart. God's got you and he's going to come through. This road is hard. But he's got you.